The world's most eligible bachelor. Men want to be him, women want to be with him.
Commoner marrying a prince, the fairy tale of it all.
Be a power couple now on the global stage.
Of course, there was the tragedy.
There were thousands there.
The whole world watching. We were all captivated and have been ever since.
Some people look back and say, delve a little deeper, and behind palace gates, the adultery.
She will be the final piece in the jigsaw puzzle.
It's a love story.
Romance and royalty. They're two of the great R's. And while sometimes they sadly don't go hand in hand, right now we're celebrating some of the most magical relationships. When romance and royalty do come together, it's a potent and powerful combination. Which provides us with some of the most memorable moments.
For better, for worse.
Enduring partnerships. And truly great love stories.
The very first time we met.
None more so than Prince Harry. We've all enjoyed watching him finally discover the woman he wants to spend the rest of his life with.
At the end of the day, she chooses me and I choose her.
But it's not been an easy journey. His parents, Charles and Diana, had the fairy tale wedding. But the marriage was a nightmare and ended in the Prince and Princess of Wales divorcing.
It became irretrievably broken down.
Well, there were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded.
Some people look back and say, of course, the adultery and the War of the Waleses was a very unfortunate and nasty episode in royal history.
They were both terrific parents, but unfortunately they didn't live under the same roof. They went on holiday with the mother, then came back, went on holiday with the father.
The world has watched Prince Harry grow up.
Less than 24 hours after Prince Harry had been born.
Harry strode confidently ahead of his new classmates,
desperate for him to find love. But being in the royal spotlight can take its toll. And the glare certainly had an effect on Harry's relationships.
Harry found love in the early days with Chelsea Davy, and it was quite a lengthy relationship. It went on for quite a few years, and when that broke up, Chelsea Davy saw the light of day, and there was no way that she was going to jump into the goldfish bowl. There's nothing private anymore. You just can't do anything because you've always got somebody with you. And she saw that, and she didn't like the idea. She didn't like the idea of being constantly pursued by the media either. No privacy. So she backed out.
Previous girlfriends have loved him, but haven't been in love with the idea of being a royal.
Then Harry found himself another girlfriend, Cressida Bonus. Cressida had other ideas. She wanted to be an actor. That was her first and foremost love. Yes, she was very fond of Harry. She was probably in love with Harry, but she wanted to pursue a career in theatre. And that's what she's done. She made the decision and she walked away.
The heartbreak perhaps led to some missteps along the way.
It's not a photo the Queen will be sticking in the royal album.
Prince Harry has brought embarrassment to the House of Windsor once again.
So it seems Sin City has a new player in town.
And the popular prince had soon earned the nickname the Playboy Prince.
Well, they always used to describe Prince Harry as the world's most eligible bachelor. I think somebody once said, you know, men want to be him, women want to be with him.
Harry went out with a number of different ladies. Everyone's speculating, is this the one, is this the one?
It's a lot of people's dream, a lot of young girls' dreams, to marry a prince. And Prince Harry is one of the coolest princes.
But was his Playboy tag unfair?
He wants this family, he's desperate for his own children, he's desperate to give his wife and his own children something that he never had and William never had, his parents living under the same roof and both parents giving love to their children at the same time.
He's never made any secret of the fact he'd love to settle down. He gave a number of interviews, in fact, saying, you know, it's just a case of meeting the right girl who's able to cope with my baggage.
Prince Harry, now very much seen as the charity ambassador, the officer and the gentleman,
Everyone's been amazing and I've felt unbelievably welcome.
was still searching.
I don't think you can force these things. It will happen when it's going to happen.
But was his bad luck about to take a turn for the better?
If you say that long-distance relationships don't work,
I know, you don't want to hear it.
because we're not most people.
As an American actress came into his life.
This is so exciting.
Then he met Meghan. He met Meghan in 2016 and it kind of developed slowly after that.
We think that they were put together on a blind date. She said a mutual friend who hasn't been named officially, although a couple of suggestions have been put into the hat. As Meghan tells the story, she didn't exactly know who she was in line to meet, whether we believe that or not, or whether she knew more about the royal family at the time than she was letting on.
And then they started this clandestine long-distance romance.
We got whiff that she was coming over here from Toronto to spend a weekend or a couple of days, or he would go over there or meet her in New York.
Between Canada, where she was shooting Suits, and England, with little stays in places like Africa.
Not really thinking that this was a serious relationship.
It was very romantic for a time and all very secret.
Until, that is, the Invictus Games in Toronto.
The relationship really hit the ground running and became serious very quickly.
Then the cat was let out of the bag and very suddenly they had to go public.
It's enough pressure as it is without this royal audience showing up, and so too the eyes of the world.
The Invictus Games really was their moment. They'd been to things together, but actually at the Invictus Games, walking along, holding hands, it's got to be the moment.
No love story, though, comes easily. Coming up next, how Harry and Meghan's might have been derailed.
Prince Harry got a bit rattled at that point and he went into full knight in shining armour mode.
Plus, we'll take you back to the original Hollywood and royalty love story. But was it happily ever after? After months of dating quietly, Harry and Meghan Markle's relationship was about to get very loud. Media rumours and reports had been swirling. But as the circus began to get too wild, Harry stepped in to shut it down.
Prince Harry, I think, got a bit rattled at that point. There was too much interest. The paparazzi were outside Meghan's house every day. There were some nasty things written in the press, which he didn't appreciate, and he went into full knight in shining armour mode.
In an unprecedented statement, Prince Harry spoke of lines crossed, a wave of abuse and harassment, and outright sexism and racism.
Tried to protect his love and put out that very heartfelt statement to the press to back off.
And everybody said, yeah, this has got to be the series. This has got to be the one.
Others had walked away, but Harry wasn't going to let Meghan slip through his fingers.
They've got more in common than meets the eye. On one hand, you look at a British prince and American actress and think, how is this going to work? Actually, you think about their family backgrounds, both are from broken homes. Both of them, between them, a kind of string of failed relationships behind them, so perhaps a bit more life experience. And you look at what they're interested in. They both love dogs. They both are very into their charity work. Meghan having been involved with charity work, I think, since she was at school. And equally this sense that they both have a good sense of fun and sense of humour.
And with the relationship official and out in the open, speculation turned to when we might expect an engagement. We didn't have long to wait.
here at our cottage. Just a standard, typical night for us.
It's a cozy night. It was what we're doing, just roasting chicken and
Roasting
having
a chicken, trying to roast a chicken.
trying to roast a chicken, and it was just an amazing surprise. It was so sweet and natural and very romantic. He got on one knee.
Meghan Mania has hit Britain in earnest, so since the engagement interview, which endeared her particularly to the public because she held her own and seemed very tactile and in love with Prince Harry, which everyone wanted to see. I think when there's goodwill behind Prince Harry, there's inevitably goodwill behind the person who's going to be his wife, because everyone quite likes Harry and so can see what Meghan sees in him. But I think there's been goodwill as well because she does represent something a bit different for the royal family.
I believe they click because they're very similar to each other. At the end of the day, when you look at what Harry's doing, take the Invictus Games. He will get involved with the participants in the Invictus Games in any way that he can. And I think Meghan will do exactly the same. She's a doer. We've seen Meghan shaking hands with people, we've seen Meghan signing autographs, we've seen Meghan hugging. You know, they are tactile. They are a new generation, a new breed.
There's no way that she's going to Duchess training camp, as has been suggested. She's already attended so many engagements and proven to be a natural. That's no surprise. She's an actress. In many ways, she was already halfway there.
The UK have welcomed Meghan with open arms. Meghan is a communicator. People, the cynics will say, well, she's an actor and she's putting on an act. She's not putting on an act. If she didn't want to do it, she wouldn't. But she's very much a communicator, and we've seen that with her humanitarian issues, that she communicates. And I believe the people have embraced her in the same way as Harry has embraced her. They're pleased for Harry that at long last that he has found somebody to settle down with. He's found somebody to start a family.
We understand the Queen likes her. We understand that Prince Charles likes Meghan as well, gets on with her very well. I think the Queen, frankly, is delighted that Prince Harry's found someone. I don't think she'd want him to carry on being a kind of playboy figure. Now he's in his 30s. She loves Harry. She knows he's got so much to offer a wife and that he is desperate to start a family. So I think she's just keen to hear the pitter-patter of more tiny royal feet.
Meghan's coped pretty well. She was at Sandringham for Christmas, which is unusual. Unusual in that there haven't been any royal brides-to-be invited to Sandringham for Christmas. Meghan didn't really have anywhere to go, and Harry liked the idea of being at Sandringham Christmas Day, grandparents getting on, and he didn't want to miss the Christmas in case something happened to them, which it could do. So they spent Christmas together. Meghan more recently at the Commonwealth Day service at Westminster Abbey, Queen leading as head of the Commonwealth, so that was a first as well. And she's coping pretty well. She knows exactly what to do. She had a good teacher in Harry. Meghan's got it.
It's not the first royal relationship to get the Hollywood treatment. In the 1950s, new and old world, glitz and glamour collided. As Rainier, the Prince of Monaco, set eyes on the world's most famous actress, Grace Kelly, at Cannes on the French Riviera.
He was smitten, who wouldn't be? This was the Hitchcock babe, the icy blonde.
You want a leg or a breast?
You make the choice.
Asked for her to be taken to the palace. So this was all arranged between MGM and the palace in Monaco, and she was taken over for a Paris Match story, actually. So it was a journalist that got the scoop on that. She went to the palace, she met him for the first time.
The Grace Kelly and Prince Rainier story, again, that notion of royalty meeting Hollywood royalty and the success of that combo and the glamour attracted to it.
A whirlwind romance. He went over to America, met her some more, proposed. They were married within the year.
So the award for the best performance by an actress, Grace Kelly for The Country Girl.
I can only say thank you with all my heart to all who made this possible.
The Oscars and accolades, though, were about to come to an abrupt end in the name of love.
I think she didn't want to give up the screen, but the problem with marrying into the royal family is that you definitely have to give up your day job. A huge sacrifice, and we'll be seeing that with Meghan Markle as well. You know, she's made an incredible career. She's 36 years old. She's at the height of her career in that series Suits, which was really going gangbusters, and she's had to pack it all in.
There is a parallel because while the royals would never describe themselves as celebrities, they have A-list status.
The day job's gone. The day job is now, and will be, being a member of the royal family.
In 1956, Grace Kelly called cut on her film career, setting sail for Monaco and her husband-to-be.
It's a very exciting thing, and I'm very, very happy.
Around 2,000 reporters from across the globe also descended on the tiny principality to cover what was called at the time the wedding of the century. It was the first to be broadcast live around the world.
Everyone went mad for it.
The wedding itself, a mammoth, opulent and extravagant production, overseen, of course, by a Hollywood studio.
This was a fairy tale, wasn't it? The dress was made by a designer from MGM, was a gift from the studio. Most beautiful dress. Many people have said it's the most beautiful royal dress ever. Quite demure, but then nipped in at the waist, and amazing lace that was brought over from Brussels, 150-year-old lace that was used, no expense spared. And, you know, Hollywood royalty marrying the Prince of Monaco, what better combination could there be?
700 guests packed tightly into the cathedral, Hollywood stars rubbing shoulders, quite literally, with world leaders. Tens of thousands lined the streets, while an estimated 30 million watched as the wedding was beamed into homes.
So a Hollywood star becomes a princess.
Of course, there was the tragedy that the marriage was 26 years in, and then Princess Grace died in that terrible car crash that we all remember so well. Everyone went into mourning. It was really, really tragic. And Prince Rainier never married again. He actually refused to marry again. I believe he did do a little bit of dating, but was never going to replace Grace Kelly.
In 2005, Prince Rainier was buried alongside his wife, in the same place they were married.
Was a real love story, I think, yes.
Still to come, the student prince and a university romance. How pizzas on the sofa turned into a date at Westminster Abbey. University. It's an education of the mind and an education in life. No matter who you are, even if you're an heir to the British throne. St Andrews University in Scotland was where Prince William went to study and stand on his own 2 feet. But it seems he couldn't do it without the help of a new friend.
William and Kate met at university. They had been studying together. She, in fact, had persuaded him to change course. He wasn't very happy when he first started at uni. And she, as a friend, said, oh, why don't you switch and try and do something different so that you can stay? And they struck up a friendship first and foremost, and then that turned into something more serious as time went on.
The relationship didn't develop until much later, but there must have been some chemistry right at the very beginning.
We know there was a famous moment where Kate sashayed down a catwalk in a very revealing, almost transparent outfit, bar her bra and pants. And William apparently saw her in a whole new light. They did break up, that was all after university, so they'd been going out for some time. And then famously one weekend, William had decided that perhaps it was all too much too soon. He wanted to break up with Kate. He told her so. Funnily enough, I remember phoning Kate that weekend, and I was in Australia. I was at a wedding, and I was told by my news desk that they'd broken up. It was reported in the Sun newspaper. So I had to phone her and say, oh, have you broken up? You know, is it true? And she was very polite on the phone and just said, look, I've never really spoken about the relationship before. Thank you for calling. Goodbye type thing. But we know afterwards she played an absolute blinder because she went to a nightclub, I think the following week. I think she hooked up with an ex-boyfriend and went to a nightclub with probably the most revealing outfit she's ever worn on, in a way to say to William, well, look at what you're missing. And of course, inevitably, he did realise that the grass wasn't greener on the other side and realised that Kate was actually the one for him. So it was, I suppose, what, a 4 or 5 month hiatus?
People sort of sniffing around thinking, well, you know, maybe they are an item. But it was really the sort of the seal of that relationship was when she went to William's passing out parade. The fact that the Queen was there as well, it spoke volumes that this was a serious relationship. It's a big moment. It was a big moment for William, and obviously a big moment for Catherine watching him passing out, because this was the guy that she knew that she was going to marry.
But the engagement didn't come. William joined the RAF, training as a search and rescue helicopter pilot. He and Kate then escaped to the countryside, out of the public glare. They were going to do things their way and on their own terms.
This was a very modern relationship, probably the most modern of all of these royal relationships. Their relationship developed over 10 years. They lived together as a couple before they got married. That's not something royals often get to do.
William and brother Harry have, of course, been shaped by tragedy, having to live their lives without their mother, Diana, after her death in 1997. Having seen how the paparazzi treated her, both have been determined not to let it happen to anyone else they love.
In their initial courtship, they were very private. And if you look at them today, they are still very private. And this has been sort of pushed along, really, by circumstances surrounding the death of William's mother, Diana, Princess of Wales, in 1997. Diana was harangued constantly, so she was never really left alone, and certainly William was not going to let that happen to any prospective bride that he was going to marry.
William has always been fiercely protective of his privacy and that of Kate and her family. I think he had huge respect for the Middletons, and if you remember when they first started going out or when they became more serious as an item, there was a bit of scrutiny of Carol, Kate's mother, talking about her being an air hostess, and she was nicknamed Dawes to Manuel, and there was some sniping in the press. And on the back of the fact that Diana felt hounded while she was alive, and of course William and Harry witnessed it firsthand as children, I think he wanted to avoid a repeat of that sort of scenario.
When the time was right for them, they faced the cameras to tell people their happy news.
All that time, she was gaining publicity. The British public were following her, the world public were following her. Everyone thought that she was going to be the new Diana. Of course, she famously got the ring of Diana. Prince William proposed in Africa with his mother's engagement ring, that beautiful sapphire ring that we know so well. And so a little bit of Diana has been with them the whole way.
She's not me around to share any of the fun and excitement of it all. This was my way of keeping her sort of close to it all.
It was a total shock when it came, and very excited.
It just felt really right out in Africa. It was beautiful at the time, and I had done a little bit of planning to obviously show my romantic side.
There's a true romantic in that.
There is.
Then when they got married, it was huge. Westminster Abbey, the whole world watching.
It's hard to believe the royal wedding is 7 years ago, because it could have just been yesterday.
The biggest event that year, probably the biggest event of the decade, I would say.
It was just a great day.
So it had this wonderful ceremony with William looking absolutely immaculate in his military uniform, Prince Harry alongside him, obviously offering some words of reassurance. I remember thinking actually Prince William looked quite nervous that morning.
William in his uniform of Irish Guards colonel, looking resplendent in scarlet.
And then Kate sashaying in, so graceful and elegant in her lace Alexander McQueen gown. I think she really stunned the world with how well she was able to handle that intense spotlight. The Queen was there clearly enjoying the celebration of the next generation of her family.
When they got in the carriage to drive back to Buckingham Palace, they were both sitting there before the horses moved off. The camera panned in, and we all like to think we're a little bit of lip readers. Kate said to William, "Are you happy?" And you could see that quite clearly.
Old and new generations here, giving the future King and Queen an unqualified embrace.
Standing on the balcony, and yes, of course, they did the kiss.
And the couple, fresh in our memory, I think, emerging in that Aston Martin car, which was like the big surprise of the day.
We were all captivated and have been ever since.
Getting hitched, though, rarely goes without a hitch. What wedding, from the smallest to the grandest, doesn't have a minor hiccup?
Who can forget Pippa Middleton, who, of course, was very much retweeted on the day because of her posterior, or how it appeared in that bridesmaid dress she wore.
We had the headlines, Rear of the Year, Derriere of the Year, and she slightly upstaged her sister, which was a little bit naughty.
Still ahead, pitter-patter of tiny feet, plus a beer and a prince, the encounter in a Sydney pub which led to Australia gaining its very own princess. After royal wedding fever gripped the world, we thought temperatures would cool. But they were about to spike again, with the announcement the Duchess of Cambridge was pregnant.
There were thousands there, and even from a distance. They just wanted to be part of the atmosphere. When William and Catherine walked out holding baby George.
This is the continuation of the story of the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge, the young royals who've captured the hearts and minds of millions of people right around the world. From their engagement to their wedding to now the birth of their baby boy, the Cambridges are now the most famous family on earth.
Yeah,
Very emotional.
it's very emotional, and it's such a special time. I think any parent, I think, will probably sort of know what this feeling feels like. So
It's very special.
I think a lot of people particularly think that fatherhood has been the making of Prince William, perhaps once regarded as could have been a bit of a petulant figure, perhaps somebody who might be liable to be stubborn and dig his heels in. And I think there's a sense that he's mellowed a lot. I think people also attribute that to the Duchess of Cambridge, because Kate is a very level-headed figure who, behind the scenes, you get the impression just calms everything down if William's likely to fly off the handle about something. But I think Prince George and Princess Charlotte, obviously when you've got 4 generations of the royal family in one room for photographs, it really does map the road ahead.
Queen loves being a great-grandmother. Queen loved being a grandmother. She adores her grandchildren.
I think the Queen loves being the great-grandmother largely because she didn't get to spend that much time with her grandchildren. Back in the day, in the 80s and 90s, when William and Harry, for instance, were growing up, she would be on tour for weeks at a time, not just a fortnight, but weeks and months. And that meant that she missed out on huge chunks of their childhood. Equally, a lot of the children were educated at boarding school, so she didn't see them. And what I hear now is that the Queen absolutely loves seeing the little members of the family. We know that they nickname her Gan Gan, and that there's a great close and intimate relationship. We saw that at Princess Charlotte's christening, where Prince George was following the Queen around.
The relationship has captivated, I think, everybody, because A, who William is. They've gone about their public duties with grace and aplomb. They realise sometimes the fun of it, for example, in India, where they play cricket, elsewhere where they've done canoe races and sailing. So they've joined in the sense of the occasion. They've not stood back and watched others do it. They felt that, hey, let's do it as well, and they've done it. And they've competed against each other with fun, being the operative word.
William and Kate have very much made the royal family more accessible.
Kate has brought new energy into the royal family, definitely. And I think also the fact that she is more normal, shall we say, and from a regular middle-class family, William has really appreciated, and also the rest of us really appreciate it because I think it makes them more approachable.
When they become king and queen, their lives and their responsibilities will extend far beyond Buckingham Palace.
William and Kate weren't the only ones in the Royal Goldfish Bowl. Just across the water from Britain, in Denmark, another couple were trying to make their way. But one of them had an Aussie twang.
I cannot recall wishing that one day I would be a princess.
And an incredible tale to tell.
In the case of Crown Princess Mary, when she first met Frederick, he was in a bar, the Slip-In Bar in Sydney during the Olympics.
And she was just there, this girl from Tasmania, not minding her own business, and the next thing she walks into a crown prince.
She tells us that she didn't know he was a prince. The jury's out on that one, but definitely he put the hard lines on her in that bar. Over the next couple of years, they had this long-distance romance to start with, and then a year later, Mary moved to Denmark, quietly tried to see whether she could get used to life there.
Mary's absolutely embraced the Danish culture. She's learnt the language, she's had 4 children there, she's absolutely invested, and she's reinvigorated monarchy in Denmark.
It's a very different life, of course, and she has talked quite openly about how she missed Australia and she was a little bit lonely to start with. But she really threw herself into it, and apparently she got on very, very well with Queen Margrethe. Good idea. Get on well with the mother-in-law. Denmark has really taken her to their heart. She's doing a fantastic job there. Her approval ratings are in the 90s. It's an incredible story for the royal family. She's a big player on the world stage in very important issues to do with women's rights.
Comparisons are often made between her and the Duchess of Cambridge because they look quite similar, and they're obviously now working royal mums. Equally, there was quite an interesting meeting that they had in Copenhagen where the two couples got together.
St James's Palace called the royal family here in Denmark to arrange a tour of the UNICEF warehouse. The response? Great. We'll do it too.
And all the time she's always said that she is an Australian too, which I think, you know, we definitely think of her as our Mary. And it's brought many Danes to Australia, so it's great for tourism too.
Today we saw more of those glimpses of her relaxed Aussie charm that's delighted the Danish and done us Aussies proud.
And I think that's an interesting story in the sense of people investing in the fairy tale, really. When ordinary people can marry royals, it makes the fairy tale come true, and then that makes them endearingly popular.
Travelling through the kingdom, she'll one day jointly rule with her husband. This was the first chance for Crown Princess Mary to feel the enormous affection of her subjects.
That whole commoner marrying a prince and the fairy tale of it all, and that it's a love story.
Still ahead, Test of Time, the longest of love stories.
It's a love match clearly for both of them. It's simply that both of them have fallen in love.
And how newer romances could shape the future of royalty down under. What princess can resist a man in uniform? More than 70 years ago, a young Elizabeth Windsor met a young Royal Navy officer. Despite the family's reservations, the pair was determined to marry. But it wouldn't be long before the sailor, the Duke of Edinburgh, was forced to chart a new course, swapping service of one kind for another.
The Queen and Prince Philip is one of the great love stories. Prince Philip, his greatest sadness in his life, and he'd probably admit that today, even at 96, was having to step out of the Royal Navy. He served with distinction during the Second World War, firstly in the Mediterranean Theatre and then in the Far East Theatre. But by the time he married Princess Elizabeth and we got into the 1950s, King George VI was ill. King George VI had cancer, he had bronchitis frequently, and when he died in 1952, that was the end of Prince Philip's naval career. He would have, had he been able to continue, gone straight to the top through his own merits. He was a good naval officer, and that's probably his one regret in life. And in the 1950s, there was a lot of innuendo within the British media, led incidentally by the French media, that the marriage was on the rocks. They were heading for the divorce court, so much so that Buckingham Palace actually put out a press statement to say there was nothing wrong with the marriage at all. And as we saw last year, they celebrated 70 years. The Queen has acknowledged that Prince Philip has been an absolute boon to her, that without him she couldn't have done the job that she has done. And he recognised in the 1950s that he had a job to do, and he knuckled down and he got on with that job. He's very much a reformer. He changed the way things are done in Buckingham Palace. He was the first one to use a computer in the palace.
The Queen and Prince Philip set the bar. I suppose you look at Victoria and Albert, and had he not died so prematurely, that was the great royal love story of the last couple of centuries.
People thought Victoria and Albert was a love story. But Albert died 21 years after they got married. This one, Queen and Prince Philip, is a story of 70 years.
This notion that the Queen would not be who she is today, or the Queen that she's been, without the man who has walked by her side, or some say 3 steps behind her for all of these decades. And yeah, that is a great love story.
I think it's a love match. It's a love match clearly for both of them. It's simply that both of them have fallen in love.
From enduring love to young love, royal families must look to the future. And it will be the new generation, William, Kate, Harry and Meghan, who shaped the monarchy and how they're received around the world, including Australia, in the years to come.
That quartet is very powerful, and what they've got on their side is youth. They are of a generation that the 20-somethings and the teenagers can look towards. There's not that separation where you've got Prince Charles, who's going to be 70 this year, and Camilla 71, and the Queen 92, and Prince Philip going to be 97. There is a big gap between the quartet and the older generation.
The Queen knows she's not going to be around forever. She's got her own unique legion of fans. No one really on earth remembers being around when she wasn't around, either as a princess or as the monarch. Then you have Charles and Camilla, who perhaps have been a bit sandwiched by the Queen being sacrosanct on the throne and the Cambridges coming up through the ranks and being very popular. But those younger children now, I think it gives people to reinvest time in watching the monarchy, because we can actually watch them grow up, and in a very much more transparent time with the internet and social media.
These Fab Four, as they've been called, have really taken centre stage and are attracting more young people to the royal family. And, you know, that is what is necessary. They are much more approachable. We're seeing them on TV, we're seeing them interviewed. You know, we have still barely seen the Queen interviewed. That's very attractive, and I think that is winning hearts around the world. Here in Australia, I think that will be a very important Republic Slayer issue. You know, they are winning fans here, and I don't think Australia is going to throw out the monarchy whilst we've got the glamour of William and Kate and Harry and Meghan.
And here in Australia, we could be expecting a visit sooner than we think from Harry and Meghan.
We'll see them in Australia this year, for sure.
The couple did do an Invictus Games event where Meghan sort of let slip that she expected to be in Sydney.
Harry will be coming for the Invictus Games, and I have no doubt that Meghan will be on his arm.
Australians will turn out in their thousands because it's Harry and Meghan.
And that could be hugely significant for the Aussies, because although they're rumoured perhaps after they come back from honeymoon to do a trip to Ireland, it's not been confirmed by Kensington Palace, but that seems to be on the cards. That will be the first long-haul trip they do to the Commonwealth.
I think we're going to go mad for her.
And after Australia,
I think we'll be seeing babies very soon. She and Harry have made it clear that they want a family and that they want a family soon. Prince Harry has been very broody over the last 5 to 10 years. He has watched his brother have Prince George and Princess Charlotte and has been desperate to be a dad himself. He's brilliant with children. I think we can't wait to see him as a dad.
It's interesting that when you look at the royals, you think, oh, they're not like the rest of us. But delve a little deeper, and behind palace gates, you realise that they all have the same problems of the rest of us. There are problems with marriages, problems with relationships, but also some very endearing love stories in there too.